Hey there, it's Jessica. Welcome back to another episode of Career Coaching with Jessness. This episode is for you if you are looking to land a company that you know has upward career growth for you. And I know what you're thinking. Well, duh, of course I want to work for a company that has upward career growth and mobility and opportunity to get more pay, learn more, have bigger visibility, new job titles, on and on. But how do you make sure that before you hit yes on the job offer, you're going into a company with a situation that does have that for you? The first thing I want to point out is that not all growth is linear. Just look at your personal life. It's not linear, right? Or look at your 20s. And if you really need an example, just check out my second book, Thank You for Dumping Me, because the healing journey in there, my friends, is nowhere near linear. But career growth and upward mobility, it relies heavily on how the company is structured. If a company organization is flat, then your growth is going to look more like a jungle gym from where you start to where you're going to go, where you're moving from one place to another, climbing around through different departments, orgs, and potentially zigzagging your way up. The more a company is vertical and has many layers, then the more opportunities for career growth you're going to have within that specific vertical or specific expertise. For instance, like sales associate, senior sales associate, sales manager, senior sales manager, sales director, senior sales director. Do you get the idea? So it really depends on the company structure and the organizational structure that the company has. So growing vertically in a specific vein or expertise, like the example I used in sales, you're going to have that expertise grow over time and get greater. And so you're going to have perhaps those upward titles. You're going to have more pay with each, rung of the ladder, if you will. And you're going to have higher job levels as you go. This isn't the only type of career growth there is. Back in the day, this was career growth, period. You start at A, you go to B, C, D, E, and work your way up just like you would climbing a typical ladder. The jungle gym route is what I think and what I've seen over the last 10 years. This episode is brought to you by my Brain Dates, one-on-one conversations where we figure out your next move together on a variety of topics. You can learn more on my website, jessnessrequired.com, under the Work With Me tab, growth and career trajectory. And it doesn't mean that it does not come with more pay and increased job levels and on and on. I would actually argue that if you're growing in your career from a jungle gym, God, I can't really say it, huh? Jungle gym kind of route, I'd argue that 90% of the time, that is going to come with more learning opportunities than someone that perhaps does climb their career ladder in more of a vertical fashion. And the reason I think that and see that throughout my career coaching is because when you're jungle gymming around and moving from one department to another, well, you're having to learn a new department, right? A new way of doing things, a new function, which comes with new processes. It comes with a new approach or way that business is structured, or the different budgeting that goes into it, the different resource allocation that comes with it. And so you're shifting from one part of the business to another part of the business. And if you're working for a giant company, then sometimes going from business to business, business unit within the overall company feels like an entire new company in itself. So the jungle gym route can, yes, still come with more pay, increased job levels, just as you would growing vertically at a company. And it's also going to come with more learning opportunities and more growth and having to pivot and stretch yourself in new ways that maybe you wouldn't have to necessarily do if you were growing vertically. I'm not arguing here that one is better than the other. I'm just showcasing that there are two paths. And the way that people grow historically throughout their career is changing. The jungle gym is a lot more popular, and it's one of the things that, to look for when you're applying and interviewing with a company. You're probably asking yourself, okay, so why would I move and create more work for myself and have to learn a whole new thing and jungle gym? One of the benefits and reasons why you might move over is because maybe the department that you work in right now is fairly flat. Like, I'll give you an example. The organization I work for is on the flatter side. So that means there's not a whole lot of middle management or kind of tiers throughout our department where I could move into more of like, our team isn't large enough to have two managers. So unless my manager hits the lottery and sails off into the sunset, then, I'm going to be waiting potentially for a really long time, either until they retire, which is years and years and years, or, they hit the lottery, or they decide to move on, right? And I know that my manager is amazing at what they do, and I don't see any sign of them wanting to leave ever, which I don't blame them. I don't want to move either. So unless, there's some opportunity within, like maybe it's managing a small team underneath your current manager, or there's a certain level of growth in the department or company where that the team's going to be multiplying, where there's going to be a need for more of that tiered structure leadership, it is what it is, right? So if I say I wanted to be a manager anytime soon, most likely it'd be a benefit for me to go and jungle gym to another department with an opportunity there. Maybe it's a department with more people, more of that tiered approach, more manager opportunities that I could then step into, right? So there's pros and cons, that both personal pros and cons and professional pros and cons that you would need to weigh out if you do want to jungle gym. And if it's just, hey, there's no opportunities where I'm at right now in terms of upwards, so I'm going to go to this bigger department with more opportunity, I'm going to go there. And you're going to stay within maybe an individual contributor, aka someone without any direct reports. You're going to go over there. Or maybe it's, hey, I actually do want to be a manager, and my manager isn't leaving anytime soon. Our team isn't growing in the next short future, so I'm going to jungle gym over there and take a manager position over there. One of the key questions that I would need to ask myself if that were the case is being a manager more important than the type of work that I'm doing now? And so I'd have to get clear on that. So how do you make sure that you're going into a company and understanding the structure? Because oftentimes I see people will get so excited about the role and the current now, which I think is so important, and live in the present moment. But you also need to have a lens of, okay, like what's after this position? If I go into this role, I want to know, what does the next 3 to 5 years potentially look like? So getting an idea of what is that growth plan and opportunity. And so part of it is know what you're getting into. And you can screen for this by asking the right questions in the interview. And it can sound something like, hey, can you tell me about how the organization is structured? And through that question, what you're hoping to understand is, how do the departments work together, right? How do they organize how the work gets done? When you get that answer, like, tell me how the organization is structured, they may say, oh, okay, so there's a number of center of excellences throughout our department, and they're led by one person. And, that's that. You could ask a follow-up question and say, tell me about, how is the leadership structured? And then they could give you some insight into, okay, we have one leader per center of excellence with teams under them that are smaller than 5 or something. So you can get an idea of, okay, that's a fairly flat organization. Whereas another answer might sound like, oh, we have teams of 5 to 8 under managers that then are underneath, a senior manager that roll up to VPs and then come into, the senior VP or the executive. Okay, then you're going to know, there's a little bit more of that vertical play or opportunity here. I wanted to say one more thing on the topic of growth, because promotions is a hot topic. And a lot of people, I think, have a misconception or an idea of, I'm going to get into this company, I'm going to work here for 9 months, and I'm going to get promoted. I'm not saying it never happens. It absolutely happens depending on the company. But I want to just point out that some companies, depending on how complex the product is or the industry in which they work in, will have longer promotion rates. AKA, you'll have to wait longer in order to get that next tier or that next promotion. And the reason for that is, just let's think about it, right? If you started in a new company and it takes you 1 year to learn the product, learn the industry, get to know the complexity of the business process within the company, you're not fully productive yet for the company. They're still training you, they're getting you up to speed. And so that full year is really kind of a give and take, right? You're in learning mode. After that year, then they're getting their quote unquote their money back, right? You're providing 100% value to that company. And so if it takes you a full year to get integrated into the company and up and running, then you're probably not going to be promoted in that 1 year. Whereas there may be other companies in industries that are more simple, or maybe the ramp up time takes 30 days for someone to get up and running and fully functioning and productive and contributing as an employee. Yeah, then maybe their promotion rate is 1 year. So just keep that in mind in terms of managing your expectations before you go into a company and understand, okay, the more complex the product, the service, whatever it is they're playing in, that longer average promotion time you're going to need to the longer the average promotion time is going to be. All right. So there's that. I think that's all I wanted to cover today on this episode. So we covered, how do you make sure a company has upward growth for you? Part of it's just reframing our idea around career growth. Not all career growth looks like an upward straight rocket, right? Vertical ladder. The jungle gym, zigzag, and climbing around through different departments and orgs is a great way to not only grow and get more pay and learn, but really to build that business acumen and get to learn, okay, I was able to work for this department, that department, 3 different departments before I became a VP. That VP within a company, having that breadth of knowledge can sometimes be more appealing to a company than someone that just started in one avenue and worked their way up, because that first VP is going to have that wider view of the company. They're not going to have too much of a single pointed focus, right? I see that a ton in my 360s, my feedback 360s, where I do executive coaching for people. And oftentimes a roadblock that people face in their career is that they become too specialized. And I'm not saying don't be a specialist or don't become an expert in anything. The beauty of the longer we work in our career, naturally, the more expert and the more expertise we're going to have in that area. That's just by nature. That's totally natural. Let that happen. But don't lose sight of where you might be able to also lean in and learn other parts of the business, because in the long run, it can really benefit you long term. And then we touched on promotions. So understanding how complex the company service and org is overall, and how that might play into your promotion and how fast your career might be going. So with that, I wish you luck, and just let me know how it goes out there. My email is in the podcast description. So we'll see you next time. This episode is brought to you by my Brain Dates, one-on-one conversations where we figure out your next move together on a variety of topics. You can learn more on my website, jessnessrequired.com, under the Work With Me tab.